Good evening. My name is Paul Kaufman, and as the Dean of the Faculty of Business and Economics, I am very pleased to welcome you to the 2025 CPA Australia University of Melbourne Annual Research Lecture. I open with the acknowledgement of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Bunurong people, the traditional custodians of the unceded land on which the university community works, learns, and lives. We respectfully recognize elders past and present. I extend a very cordial welcome to Mel Yates, FCPA, the President of the Victorian Division, CPA Australia, and his fellow council members. I wish to also welcome our presenter for tonight's lecture, the 86th in the series, Emeritus Professor Anne Tarca, who will shortly be introduced. I'm very pleased that we are joined by colleagues from far afield and across industry and academia. I would like to welcome delegates from the CPA Congress, staff and students of the university, members of CPA Australia, and of the profession and the general public. Of all the lecture series at the University of Melbourne, and indeed the world, this one is the longest running. It was first presented by Sir Alex Fitzgerald in 1940. Sir Alex was a leader in education, a pioneer in accounting research, and was the second to serve in the role of head of department at the University of Melbourne. His brother, Garrett, was also a key figure in accounting and a professorial chair in the department which now bears their name. Both Alex and Garrett have been inducted into the Australian Accounting Hall of Fame. It is indeed a proud tradition that continues tonight. Our presenter, Emeritus Professor Anne Tarca, continues the long line of prominent speakers who have gone before him to tackle challenging questions, present new ideas, and find better ways of understanding the field of accounting. I now invite my colleague, the Deputy Head of the Department of Accounting, Professor Vic Nijke, to introduce tonight's speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kaufman, for opening tonight's annual research lecture. Good evening, everyone. My name, as Paul has just mentioned, Vic Nijke. I am the Deputy Head of the Department of Accounting here at the University of Melbourne. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce our speaker for tonight. The 86th edition of CPA Australia, the University of Melbourne Annual Research Lecture, will be presented by Anne Tarca. Anne follows in a long tradition of distinguished speakers who have grappled with complex issues and advanced our understanding of the broad field of accounting. Anne served as a member of the International Accounting Standards Board from July 2017 to June 2025, where she led the board's academic liaison initiative, strengthening the connection between research and standard setting. She worked extensively with global stakeholders on all projects in the IASB's work plan, saw the completion of several major initiatives, and contributed to strategic developments in digital reporting. Her prior service also includes membership on the Australian Accounting Standards Board from 2014 to 2017, with a period as Research Director as well as an academic fellowship with the IFRS Foundation. Before her time at the IASB, Anne was a professor at the University of Western Australia Business School and the head of the Accounting and Finance Group. She is widely recognized for her many influential publications on the adoption and use of IFRS accounting standards and for research of direct relevance to the profession. Throughout her career, Anne has also been an active contributor to the international academic community, serving on boards and committees of several major organizations. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome Anne as this year's speaker. So can you please join me in welcoming her to the podium to present a lecture titled My Brilliant Career in Accounting.
Thank you, Vic, and thank you for this invitation to be here this evening. It is a very great pleasure. I love Melbourne and it's great to be here. And it's great to go back and be talking with academics, but also with the practitioner, my fellows in the accounting profession and in other professions related to academia. So it's a great pleasure to be here. I thank CPA Australia for the invitation. I thank University of Melbourne for their great organisation. So we do have some slides in typical fashion. Right. I need to move, don't I? I need to grow as well. That's okay. Three things I'd like to talk to you about this evening. This idea of my brilliant career. Not sure if it's my brilliant career or other people's brilliant careers we're going to talk about. Secondly, what I think are the hypothetical questions about standard setting. And thirdly, back to the theme of your brilliant career and success leaves clues. So first of all, it's really helpful to me if I have a feel for who's in the audience. So we have some Slido questions. We have two. So if we could have the first Slido question, please. And out comes the phones. This is good. And you get a choice 1 out of the 5 on the screen, please. Okay, great. Thank you for the support of the accounting profession and other professionals. I'm really interested in the very low number of students here. Thank you, students, for coming and giving up your precious time to hear me talk. Yeah, and great to have fellow academics here. All right. Let's go to the second question then, about career plans. And you have to choose 1 of 6. The bottom one is don't know, not sure. So let's see who's still going to be in the accounting profession, because many of you are already. So why did I choose this topic of my brilliant career? I'm not sure, but once I started thinking about careers and speaking to a mixed audience on this CPA evening, I did start thinking about my brilliant career, and I remembered the book and the film. I remembered the film first, so I had to go back and read the book during my recent vacation. So many of you in the room will be familiar with that film that came out in 1979, a Gillian Armstrong film, launched the careers of Judy Davis and Sam Neill. But there is a book behind it, and the book was published in 1908. Our heroine, Sibylla, had a very attractive offer of marriage, but she didn't want to take it, and she declined, and she pursued her own path and went on to be very famous. So she gives her name to the Miles Franklin Award, which is a very significant award in Australian literature, and also to the Stella Prize. So as I reflected on my career and thought about people who are joining the accounting profession or working within it, or indeed in some cases leaving it for other things, I thought my brilliant career was a way to frame our remarks. If you're not familiar with the book or the film, you can get the film online. You can find it, but you don't have to look right now. So the question that I have to address is whether I had a brilliant career or not, and that's a very subjective judgment. And I asked ChatGPT whether I had a brilliant career or not, and we'll return, I promise. I've got my timer going. I promise we will return to what ChatGPT said about my brilliant career. So I do want to start by a discussion that's relevant to our brilliant sponsors, CPA Australia, and that is whether you can have a brilliant career in accounting. So firstly, let's talk about why people would be accountants. I went to a school reunion in the 1970s, and myself and one other were voted to be the most unlikely people to be accountants. The one other was a fabulous young fellow. All through school he was pushing the boundaries by having long hair and going surfing instead of coming to school and so forth. So he and I lined up as the unlikely accountants. I did go on to do an accounting degree at UWA and work in the accounting profession. At that time, there was the Big Eight, and I worked in one of the Big Eight firms. And in my induction week, one of the partners said, "We are not dull, colourless and boring." And so that stays with me many years later. I do reject the idea that accountants are boring. And we often wonder about the image. The lawyers and detectives get the glamour roles and accountants don't really get the glamour roles. Maybe that's because accountants work very much behind the scenes, but it certainly does not mean that the work of accountants is not important. And I'm probably preaching to the converted. Many of you are in the profession and you know the work's important. Others of you are teaching the accountants of the future, so you also believe the work's important. What did I think about in terms of why someone, if they're looking at careers now, why would they be an accountant? I think the fact that accounting is international is an incredibly attractive part of the accounting profession, that we have an international language that's recognised throughout the world. We do have some differences in accounting standards, but we do have IFRS, which is used in, as we all know, more than 140 countries. And we have a high degree of harmonisation between IFRS and US GAAP. So I think for students looking at a career that could be useful for them, I think that the fact that accounting is international is very attractive. And whether you want to work in a startup, something new and exciting, or whether you want to be a fund manager, whether you want to work for a large listed company, whether you want to work in small business, there's such a range of opportunities and range of skills demanded. So plenty of opportunities, plenty of scope. Accounting as a basic skill set. Many people in accounting, and there'll be people in the room in this case, start in accounting and go on to do something else. Many accountants become involved in decision making. They become leaders in their organisations. I think it's very exciting to be in a profession that you don't know where things will take you, where you'll be led. So the fact that accounting is a special language, I think there's the opportunity for people to master that special language and build on that and build a very strong and successful career. We know that accounting is behind so much in terms of business and so much decision making. And on a daily basis, we can read in the press of bad things that have happened because people didn't have good accounting. We know that businesses fail, and one of the key reasons for business to fail is the fact of accounting. I can remember when we had a global financial crisis and people looked again at accounting and realised again the importance of accounting. And I think all of us are active in promoting accounting and recognise the importance that it has, and also recognising that people can build very good careers based on accounting. But accounting is much more than numbers, and that's been recognised in the profession for a long time. Accountants become strategic decision makers or supporting decision making in that role. I think with accounting, people have a lot of scope and they don't know where their careers will take them. And it's fabulous watching the progress of students and seeing how their careers develop and where accounting takes them. In my own case, as Vic said, I've just finished an 8-year term at the IASB. I qualified as a chartered accountant in 1985 and finished at the IASB in 2025. I never have predicted that career path. I'm very grateful that I got those opportunities. As a standard setter, I think if I think about what attracted me to standard setting, I first became involved at the AASB, I had spent some time in London at the IFRS Foundation as an academic fellow, and I had come back to work again at the University of Western Australia, and I became involved in Melbourne at the AASB. That led to my position in the IASB, and I joined the IASB at a very exciting time under the leadership of Hans Hogevorst and Sue Lloyd. They had been busy finishing some major standards for revenue, for leasing, for insurance, for financial instruments. And these standards represented big steps forward in terms of harmonising financial reporting requirement. And many countries had been involved in that process, and many individuals were supporting IFRS accounting standards. So it was an exciting time to be a standard setter. I was looking forward to working on the projects on the agenda, such as primary financial statements, which had been a research interest of mine. It was a very large project and had begun and continued throughout the time I was there. I was also interested in the management commentary project and in particular the post-implementation reviews, because I felt that my skills as an accountant would be relevant to those. When I got there, things were somewhat different, and I ended up working on things I didn't expect, like reopening the insurance standard, making adjustments to standards for the COVID events, the reform of IBOR that took place, and the emergence of nature-dependent electricity contracts. In terms of working on IFRS 18, a big project, and I think the first thing that struck me was the extensive consultation that went on, the length of outreach. I've heard Andreas Barkau say that he could lock intelligent people in a room, experienced standard setters in a room, and they could write the intangible standards in 6 months. And so why is it going to take the board years and years to do an intangible standard? And the answer to that is the consultation. So there's an extensive consultation process that goes on in any project, actually small or large, but something like the primary financial statements project had an enormous amount of consultation. So that was one of my first eye-opening experiences. So even though I had been at the AASB, and that is a board that consults a lot and interacts a lot at the international level, it still was something to observe the process of gathering feedback and learning about how standard setters make compromises. The project that resulted in IFRS 18, it was fantastic when they got issued in 2024 to see that completed. There were many milestones along the way. We all had a Christmas break and came back for a Christmas break and came back to ideas about how we would deal with a general presentation standard that would be suitable for across industries. It could be general, it could cover banks and insurance as well. We had to think a lot about classification decisions and the balance between making rules about how things would be classified and also using principles, because we recognise that IFRS accounting standards are principle-based and stakeholders want them to stay that way. We did a lot of work on something called management performance measures, and that was a bit sticky, but that went ahead once we got support from regulators and worked out some common ground there. Something that didn't go ahead was unusual items. Many people wanted us to define them and to put requirements around them for presentation and disclosure, but we couldn't get agreement and we didn't go ahead. We made a decision that wasn't a popular one for some people around where we put share of profit from associates, in the new format of the income statement. And it's a good example of the board listening, but having to make a decision reflecting all the information they had. So this project represents an excellent opportunity for academic research. Many of you are involved in research and students, particularly postgraduate ones, looking for projects. The IASB does an effects analysis on standards 3 years out from application, so 3 years from 1 January 2027 in this case. And the effects analysis that's issued with the standard gives really good guidance for the post-implementation review that's done. So when people are looking at the effects of the standard academic research is really useful for the board as they try and review a standard. So there are many questions that are going to come up from the IFRS 18 application, and so the board will be very keen to see that research. Research forms a key part of the IFRS projects. The IASB has a process where academic research is referred to. Now, some people are very critical of academic research in terms of its ability to inform practical decisions, to inform policy. And I think it's really important that we look at that. As board members, we do recognise the limitations that are there, and academics have documented well the limitations around the lack of connection between the theories and practice. They're not close enough for things that are demonstrating a theory to be used in practice. There's problems with data availability restrictions. The data you need to test the things that are going into or coming out of standards is not available. There's problems showing causality, so showing causal relationships. There's problems controlling for concurrent events. And indeed, often in standard setting, we can't have the control samples that other disciplines have. So recognising there are limitations around academic research, it still has a really important role for standard setting. The IASB now has structure that involves literature reviews. The academic literature reviews are written by qualified academics, and then people work on them to make sure they're in a language that the board members can understand. So board members now are really trained up to look for those academic literature reviews, to look for the evidence that the academics can provide. So academics are in a unique role to be able to provide insights. Academics bring skills and experience to the table that is unique to them. They may be more independent than some of the other stakeholder groups. They're in a great position to do the work, and it's been very pleasing to see over the 8 years academic evidence being used a lot more. The academic evidence won't tell the standard setters what to do. That's the decision of the standard setters, looking at all the information they gather and all the feedback from the stakeholders. But that academic evidence still can influence decision making, and we have plenty of examples of that, how that's happening. I mentioned a post-implementation review process, and that's a key one where the academic literature reviews are done, they're presented, and they're discussed. We also, during my time, I worked on the process that we go through in doing the post-implementation review to try and improve that process, because there was a lot of learning going on. Now, I know some practitioners have been very frustrated with the post-implementation review process that the IASB does, and they've been frustrated because they've genuinely brought their concerns and they haven't seen the responses, they haven't seen change. And I think one of the things to understand is that the IASB looks across the global communities, and sometimes the requests for change are very narrow. They're for a particular issue, for a particular group. And if it's not widespread, to bring that change in brings a lot of disruption into the system. It's a very complicated process as people take a standard and apply it to across the companies and across the world. So any change has to be approached with caution. So I just mentioned that we're aware, the IASB is very aware of the frustration that some practitioners have had around the post-implementation review. So please don't give up, please keep contributing to it. But I just try to explain that it's very hard to make some of these changes that people ask for because of the costs that'll put into the system. And the IASB is always thinking about costs and benefits. As mentioned by Vic, a lot of my time at the IASB was involved with academics and strengthening the relationship with the academic community. I think we had two aims in doing that. Firstly, to see more academic evidence to come before the board, and secondly, to actually encourage the production of that evidence. And there are people in this room who've been involved in that process, and there's a lot of acknowledgement now of that and of the process. I'll talk more on that in a minute, but I'd like to move on and take some. Well, let's have the ad break. I was really, really happy to be part of that board that's appearing there. That's with Andreas as the chair, Linda Maison-Hutter from Canada as the vice chair, and my colleagues from all around the world. That was taken just when I was leaving IFRS, when we still had a board of 14, and they were great people to work with. And I'll talk a little bit more about them and the process of standard setting and what it was like working with them and their skills. And the other photos are staff. Some of you know Lee White, and that's him in his little Christmas outfit. It looks like a prison outfit, doesn't it? But it used to win the prize for the best dressed. I'm next to Lee. I'm actually wearing a rash top, a lycra rash top, a summer rash top in Christmas colours. But my rash top I never won. They never appreciated the cleverness of wearing a Christmas jumper that was a rash top. It just went right over the European head. But other photos are the fabulous staff, and IFRS Foundation is all about the fabulous staff. So I thought we'd take some hypothetical questions. I know that we're going to take real questions, but I thought we'd have a few hypothetical questions. So there they are on the screen. Let me take them one by one. So standard setting is decision making to get the best outcomes. We've got to make decisions. We're trying to get good outcomes. So what is it that's so difficult in this decision making? Let's go for that one. What I found so challenging was not having the information for decisions. Because if you think about research projects, you gather the data and you make your conclusions, and I know often those conclusions are couched in if this, then that, and, subject to these limitations and so forth. But even so, there's evidence, and based on that evidence, you make decisions. The challenge for the standard setters is not having not enough information and having not the right information. If you think about qualitative research, such as interviews, academics talk about saturation point when the interviewer is hearing the same points from the interviewees, so you get saturation. So the IASB was always looking for feedback and looking for the commonality in the feedback. Are the views shared across the stakeholder groups? Are they pointing to the same issues? Is it the same across industries or countries? And in many cases, views were diverse, and consensus on solutions would require a compromise. So quite a difficult process, because the board would then assess whether the compromises were so great to make the standards ineffectual. So a lot of decisions would need to consider those things. For academics, when they're thinking about evidence drawn from a sample, they usually have a good idea of the population base and they can work on how representative the sample is. But it's not like that for standard setting. And as we presented academic evidence to the board, we'd have to remind them we aren't talking about representative samples. This is not something you can do in standard setting. They couldn't just look at those graphs, and you had to be so careful with graphs, which the staff did and which was fantastic. But 15% said this and 12% said that, or the sample of the countries, we had so many X% from this country and X% from that country. But you have to be careful that people didn't assume this was representative of a population. So people had to learn, standard setters and the staff and the board had to learn how to make use of the academic information that came before them, as well as all the other information. My second question, principles that guided the activity. I mentioned when I started work on the primary financial statement project, the extensive consultation that went on, the very detailed work that went on. It emerged to me that really for standard setters, problem definition is the key thing. You really got to work out what your problem is, and it doesn't have to be solved And is it a problem that's in the remit of the standard setters, or does the problem lie somewhere else? And so again, that might be frustrating for stakeholders, but sometimes the board would say, well, we don't believe it's our problem. We believe that this is someone else in the ecosystem. So that became a popular phrase, this idea of the ecosystem. What do I mean? I mean the role of auditors, the role of regulators. There's financial preparers, there are investors, there are others. And so deciding on the problem, and we would look at things like how pervasive do we think this issue is? What should something could be done? Is a solution feasible? All of those type of questions come after the problem definition stage. And all of standard setting tended to be through a cost-benefit lens, thinking about would the benefits outweigh the costs. And any of you who followed standard setting work will see that that is a continual discussion for board members. My third question to myself: what did I like best about standard setting, and what skills make an effective standard setter? I liked best meeting the stakeholders. I liked hearing about what issues were really important. It just made it all come alive. I liked going back into academic meetings and wearing my standard setter hat and hearing what the academics had to say, and just crossing over between the academic world and all its interests and what it means in the standard setting world to take that academic evidence. In terms of skills, I think they're the same skills that are valued in other, be that the accounting profession, other jobs in academia. They're being team player, highly developed listening skills, problem-solving skills. One of the people I enjoyed interacting with very much was Bruce Mackenzie. Bruce would often have the alternative view, and so around the table we'd get all the board, agree, all complimenting each other, and Bruce would go, no, don't agree. And that's so important for a board to have someone like that. And he always had very good reasons for why he didn't agree. And, to this day, he's still arguing that the board should work on crypto, so he's fine. So the soft skills. I remember my teaching days and hearing from the accounting profession that they want an improvement in soft skills. What are the most important things that the undergraduates need to acquire during their journey through university? Soft skills, problem-solving skills, communication, strategic thinking, teamwork. My guess is that those of you who are lecturing to that student cohort are still saying the same things. My guess is the profession is still asking for those skills, and it's becoming incredibly focused now as we confront an AI-enabled world. Finally, for my questions to myself, what should the role of practitioners and academics be in standard setting? I think that there really is a role for practitioners and academics in standard setting. I've mentioned the interactions, the extensive interactions the IASB has with stakeholders and the whole mechanisms that it has with consultative groups of all sorts to gather feedback, to bring that feedback in. The IASB is not a government of a totalitarian state. It does not impose. So for any chance for these standards to be successful, there needs to be a consensus, there needs to be a body of people supporting them. So input from the practitioners is key to that, and I think input from the academics complements that and rounds out. And I must say that the staff of the IASB over the 8-year time I was there really embraced finding, locating and using academic work, and the board members themselves look for it and ask where the research is, which is great. So those of you that are involved in the process, all credit to you, and please keep involved. I know for academics, The demands on your time keep increasing. The goals that are being given to you keep getting higher. Many of you are encouraged to engage with practice, with your work. And I really want to acknowledge the University of Melbourne in terms of supporting for many years areas of research that are relevant to practice. It makes just an incredible difference to the accounting profession to have that involvement of the profession in the standard setting, as it should be. It's standard setting for the profession, so to have that academic input has been very positive. Those of you who are involved, I would like to credit your efforts and encourage you to stay with it. We have, at the IFRS Foundation, we have an academic webpage, a dedicated webpage. All of the resources of the IASB can be available there in terms of documents, meeting recordings, speeches, all sorts of things. We also have a lot of information about how you can be connected with the IASB, and we have a lot of information about the academic work that's being used. So the literature reviews are all there. There are documents showing the citations of the papers, and it's wonderful that so many Australian and New Zealand academics will feature, and their papers feature on those lists. So this is a way you can show impact when you need to do that in your work for the university. Okay. The other thing you can find on the website is where research opportunities lay. We've done lots of presentations, we have webcasts, we have all sorts of materials that's really just bringing to the academics' attention the work program of the IASB. So if you look at the current work program and you look at the things that are in the pipeline, that really alerts you to what's coming. So many people know what the issues are because you interact with people in the profession and you find out that way. And I encourage you to do that. The more that academics can interact with the profession, the more the standards, the research people undertake can contribute to the profession. Right. I would like to go to, another ad break. Yes. So I said that one of the best things about the job was travelling and meeting people, or might just be staying in London and meeting people, but travelling, and that was great, meeting the stakeholders. Yeah. Right. This is the third and final part of my talk this evening, and returning to this idea of a brilliant career. And this phrase, success leaves clues. So let's just talk about that a little bit. Those of us at the end of our career or well advanced in our career could ask ourselves, how we got here. Is it a matter of good planning and goal setting and building progressively? Or do we advise those we're mentoring in the profession, or indeed students, do we advise them to be flexible and open to opportunities? I think if you asked me, before I did this talk, I would have said I was very focused and very planned, but in fact that's not right. Just things happened. So, in terms of students choosing careers, maybe career optimism is very affected by the current state of world affairs. The coverage of AI is unrelenting, and we're really not sure what that means. I think the profession has probably had bad press about the hard work the young graduates do, long hours, perceived lack of recognition, training, mentoring and rewards. There have been ethical failures in the profession. Maybe that puts people off as well. I probably can find ways to rebut all of those concerns. I think that the level of pessimism around isn't helpful. It's not helpful for young people. I can remember when my kids were thinking about career choice, all the parents of my generation, nobody was recommending their own profession. You can't do that. You can't be so negative about your own profession that you can't encourage people to go into it. I think you have to find where the positives are in your profession. Yes, it is true that young graduates work long hours, but that's true, not just in accounting. And it is true that many people give up things and work very hard to progress their careers, and academics in this room would certainly be nodding, because academic research turns into a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day job that consumes people, and people can get very involved and very passionate about their work. So I think that there are positives, and those of us who are more senior need to encourage those who are more junior as they face the challenges. We don't know what AI is going to bring. We don't know what it's going to do. It appears to be stunningly clever, doesn't it? And we have lots of stories about how it's changing work, certainly changing entry-level jobs, changing the tasks, so many things it can do. But it's very early days, and we're not sure yet. We're going to have a little mini break. We're going to see a little YouTube. This is a YouTube extraction from a video made in 1967. So let's look at the YouTube.
Fingertip shopping will be one of the many homemakers' conveniences. This video console will be channeled into the store of her choice. There, a camera will scan a display of wares, which she will select by push button. Another part of this console is a household monitor screen, which maintains a watch on critical areas in the house, swimming pool, or yard. What the wife selects on her console will be paid for by the husband at his counterpart console. All bills and transactions will be carried out electronically. A central bank computer will debit the family's account the amount of purchases and credit the department store, for example, informing the family's home computer at the same time. Father, at the touch of a button, receives an instantaneous printed copy of his budget, the amount of taxes he owes, the payments left on the car, and so forth. All documents and household records are available on the video screen for immediate reference. Also at his disposal is an electronic correspondence machine, or home post office, which allows for instant written communication between individuals anywhere in the world. To maintain these and hundreds of complex electronic circuits, a monitor checks all circuits every few seconds, inserts a backup circuit if and when trouble develops, and alerts the communal service agency for replacement.
So they were very, very clever, all the things they got right, even to the extent of multiple monitors in front of the person. But they certainly got the bit, what the person was, wrong. So why did they not think about social change? They're very good on all the technologies, all the things there. They predicted them and we have them all. But they didn't, there's no reference at all to the other thing that's happened around the technology, which has been the massive change in terms of who does which job. I think with AI, people are really thinking about social implications of the change. The accounting profession has been involved in so much change. I did start in the accounting profession with a 10-column worksheet and a calculator, and debits were on the Windows side. And the profession has adapted and continued, and it will continue to adapt in the face of AI. So I wouldn't think that AI is a reason to not pursue a career in accounting. I think there's going to be massive opportunities that come out of AI. We just don't know quite how they'll shape up at this stage. So, success leaves clues. I think it's really helpful if you're early on in your career thinking about the role models that you're using, and you're thinking about learning from other people's success and indeed their missteps, because everybody makes missteps along the way. It's just what they do with those missteps. And I'm always fascinated by people in the public arena who've made a misstep and haven't been able to accept it and say, I did. Sometimes people, when they're talking about their career journey, they'll say this happened and so forth. But the sometimes high-profile people are unable to accept that it's an error, and perhaps they're worried about legal liability and their pending time in incarceration. Who knows? Those of us who are looking back, we know how important mentors have been to us. Those of us in the middle of our career know how important the people around us are. And those of us starting out careers, I would suggest to you that choosing very carefully who you follow and what you learn from is particularly important. So as in an accounting career, there are so many opportunities, and there's the chance to think beyond the for-profit. There's so much more now where accounting is used, and many people will pursue accounting. It can be in public sector, it can be in public policy, it can be in decision making, it can be in not-for-profits. We have so many more issues now that are beyond a narrow definition of financial accounting. Financial accounting is important into so many other areas, and so we talk a lot about broader corporate reporting. So there's much there in the future. So I need to conclude, and I want to conclude with, I had lots of very, very positive experiences during my career, and I'm very grateful for those. I consulted ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT whether I had a brilliant career or not, and I'd comment on a couple of things here. Firstly, ChatGPT couldn't tell me what I actually did. When it listed what I did in the 8 years, it was absolutely wrong. It was factually wrong. So, you know, that's a warning. We all know that already, that it makes stuff up. So there you go. And the other thing that really struck me about ChatGPT and Tarca's brilliant career was that it was very nice to me. It was very positive. And that's a warning as well, isn't it? Because that means it's been trained to be like that. So equally, it can be trained not to be like that. And I think the third thing was, it's a machine talking to me. You know, so I'd much rather hear what my board member colleagues or the stakeholders had to say to take it to value. But anyway, ChatGPT, it's with us, and I'm going to stop there, and we're going to open for questions. Thank you.
I've got 4 questions here on Slido. We might not be able to get through all 4, so I apologize to the submitters of the last 2 questions we might not be able to get to, but let's see how we go for time. So the first question I've got here is, what is your view of standard setting? Are standard setters regulators that establish regulations, or do they codify best practices and provide guidance?
I suppose they're doing part of both. They do a lot of regulating around best practice, because they end up mandating and creating accounting standards with principles and rules that go into the law of a country, and a lot of that, it does emerge from best practice. Now, sometimes people will say it's not best practice. So I talked about Bruce Mackenzie and his alternative views. He did not agree with what we did on for the green energy contracts. He did not agree with the opening up of the financial instrument standard, where we compromised on certain things, and I think did some very helpful things. He didn't agree with that. So he would say that one's not codifying best practice, that was changing the standards to accommodate something that was emerging in practice. So in that way, is that leading and making new regulation? yes, because it then allowed people to do the type of accounting they wanted to do for those green energy contracts. So it's a mix. Because sometimes the things are leading and they will cause people to change. So that's more like making regulation. And other times it's about something that's already in place. People already use post-tax discount rates in their impairment testing, and that's going to get codified.
Thank you, Anne. I've got a couple of questions here. They look quite similar, so I'm going to just ask one of these. What is one piece of advice you would go back and give your younger self based on your career and life experience?
Things work out. I think we experience, especially in those middle years, where you're just so busy and you're trying to develop your career and you have people have family obligations that may be a partner, it may be children, it may be parents or whatever. There can be a lot of obligations around that. And then often people are trying to do other things, and then they might be also wanting to look after themselves in some way. Incredibly busy and stressful time. So I think just having some confidence that things will work out, that even if you can't see what's ahead, if you keep pursuing the behaviours that you're happy with, that you can, stand up and be proud of, I think you're going to end up in a good place that may not be where you thought you were going. But, yeah, that's what I'd say to myself. Worry less, be happy.
Right, thank you. Thank you so much. And we might cut it off there with the questions. I think we're just about out of time. But thank you again, Anne, for the very interesting and engaging presentation. Your distinguished career reflects a very unique perspective on the accounting profession and underscores the crucial role of academic research in shaping both accounting and finance practices. At a time when our discipline faces significant challenges, your lecture has given us much to reflect upon regarding the evolving role of accountants in a rapidly changing world. So thank you so much for your expertise and insights.
Thank you.
As is tradition, I would now like to invite Professor Kaufman to present Anne with the University Medal in recognition of a delivery of this year's CPA Australia University of Melbourne Annual Research Lecture.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
As we bring this evening to a close, I would like to thank everyone here for contributing to the success of tonight's annual research lecture. I also extend our gratitude to CPA Australia for its ongoing support of this lecture, which has enabled it to continue as the world's longest running public lecture series. May I finally kindly request the members of the official dinner party to remain in the theatre once we conclude so we can escort you to the dinner venue. Finally, I have now the pleasure of inviting Mel Yates, FCPA Victorian Divisional President at CPA Australia, to the lectern for the closing comments. Thank you. Mel.
Thank you, Vic. And thank you very much for a rich and inspiring presentation. You've taken us on a journey this evening through the personal, the professional, and the philosophical. You have clarified that accounting is not just about numbers. Accounting is about meaning, impact, and possibility. You allowed us to traverse time this evening, starting with literature from the early 20th century, when Australia had just become a federation. We swung to the 1960s to ponder and forecast what the future, or today, would resemble in our homes. Looking at the prediction versus the actual, spot on, yet so far away from the truth. Our travel through time concluded in this shifting world that is 2025. Your reflections on a brilliant career, both yours and the ones that any of us might create, are motivating and thought-provoking. You have shown us that success is not always a straight line. It is not defined by a title nor an accolade, but it is found in the opportunities we take, the choices we make, the values we uphold, and the contributions we offer within our communities as part of the accounting profession. What has struck me upon reflection of your experience is the vast options that are available within accounting. I had the privilege of delivering this research lecture last year in 2024, and I took the opportunity to look back at the collection of topics that have been covered and the diversity of speakers throughout the long history of this series. And accounting really does offer choice. Accounting can be many things. Accounting can be anything. Just consider the current CPA campaign. CPA, 3 letters to limitless. And you have reminded us that accounting is the language of business, a passport to global opportunity, a foundation for leadership, and a tool for public good. You have outlined the profession is evolving through technology, through international collaboration, through the growing importance of sustainability, and all the while with an enduring grounding in ethics. Your stories from the IASB were powerful, as were the pictures. They highlighted the complexity of standard setting, the importance of listening, the value of academic and practitioner collaboration. You provided clarity that thoughtful, inclusive decision-making is at the heart of making progress in financial reporting, standard setting, and harmonisation. You also highlighted the need to participate in our profession through standard setting and research opportunities. And I keep reflecting on judgment and the importance of judgment across borders, across industries, and within every sphere of accounting. As accountants, we should always be guided by our North Star, and that is the public interest. Judgment is a critical human quality central to accountants. And while you outlined many other qualities, including communication, innovation, problem solving, strategic thinking, teamwork, and compromise, among others, all of these will equip anyone for success in their own brilliant career in accounting. Possibly the most important thing you have encouraged us to look for are the clues that success leaves behind. To learn from others, to stay curious, and to be brave to forge our own path. We need to explore our own environments and consider what opportunities are available to each of us. Wherever we are in our career, whether we are students or veterans, educators and researchers or practitioners, auditors, regulators, or in fact wearing any other hat. We all have a role to play in shaping the future of accounting. So thank you, Anne, for your wisdom, your generosity and your example. You have given us a lot to think about and even more to aspire to. Thank you.